Trident Coffee is sponsoring this episode of the Invictus Mindset Podcast. My guys over at Trident taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good and bad, and everything in between. At Trident, they're storytellers. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They help create connections through symbology and storytelling that engage their customers on an emotional level, and this distinguishes them from other coffee brands. You can find Trident in Imperial Beach and in Coronado. They offer over 14 plus nitro cold brews along with dairy-free options. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from their keto bakery. All these options will allow you to support your health and fitness journey with Trident Coffee. They're more than just a coffee company. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Once again, that's tridentcoffee.com. Use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Take your coffee experience to the next level. Striving to maximize your potential through health, wellness, and high-level fitness requires tremendous midline strength and stability. Allow the crew over at Element 26 to co-pilot your journey so that you can destroy PRs and not destroy your body. They have this amazing self-locking weightlifting belt that provides a 4-inch uniform profile for optimal intra-abdominal pressure and back support. This quick-release technology allows the pressure to be placed on the buckle and pin instead of the Velcro. Nothing's worse than being at the bottom of a squat and having the Velcro pop on your weightlifting belt. Head on over to element26.co and use code Invictus10 at checkout to receive 10% off all online purchases. Head on over to element26.co and use code Invictus10 at checkout to receive 10% off all online purchases. Destroy your PRs, not your body.
Drink this protein powder, or you're on this particular workout program, or you do this, meditation thing. Like, the mind will let you do or let you not do a lot of things depending on where it's sitting. So I really think that we're just so impatient about letting things happen. But if we get something good, man, we're gonna blast it all over the place. And then when people look on the outside, you're right. It's like, well, what are they doing? Well, I got to compete with that person, either in the gym or on the floor, either one. Well, maybe I should switch. I mean, I hate it. It's so hard for me to see the athletes, we're talking the high-end athletes, that every year they have a different coach. It's like, man, you didn't even get to where you could actually get to the part where you can start fixing the problems yet. You just got into the groove of the programming, let alone working on what it is you have to do. It's just really hard to see. It's hard to see.
Yeah, the way you described all of that is so cool. And I think it goes back to a little bit of like a relationship with dosage, right? Like a program can be a generalized program, but then you integrate the appropriate doses of the things that you need. And that takes depth and consistent conversation with a coach or somebody that is, in your circle of trust, trying to elevate you to that next level. And I think that takes time to foster that relationship. I think it takes the honor of true trust and realizing like, okay, this person has my best interest. I need to surrender that because they have a lens observing my behaviors and my characteristics versus this singular focused lens that I may have. And I think it's really cool because back in the day, you look at, I started at Valley CrossFit. So I was around like Becca Voigt and Chris Clever and the OG Valley girls. It's so cool to learn from all of them. And then simultaneously, you saw like the NorCal crew of like Jason Khalipa, Pat Barber, Miranda Oldroyd. And then modern day, you look at it, it's like you've got Invictus, you've got CompTrain, you've got Mayhem, you've got Proven, you've got Training Think Tank. How much do you think, since we were describing programming, how much do you think environment and training partners play in the role of athlete development and enhancement of our abilities?
I think it depends on the athlete. I think if you are high end, and we're talking like, if you're a real games athlete, I think that it is important to get shoulder to shoulder with other people that are going to push you, because most competitive athletes don't like to lose, and so even though we're very good at pushing ourselves, we don't really know where that line is. I mean, we're chasing phantoms. So I think that it's important to have that. If you are someone that has an issue, and we're talking just a regular gym member, what I tell people regularly, like, man, it's just so hard to go. I'm just tired at the end of the day. I'm like, just get in your car and start driving. You get here, I'll take care of the rest. You just have to get here. And once you're here, I have them. Their friends will be here. Other people will be around. Just the fact that they're in the middle of other people keeps them going. So I think that like there is a huge element of enhancement for individuals for that. Now, that's not to say that, again, that's not for everybody. There are some people that they will do best when they can be on their own, because their mind does, like, the fact that someone is right there next to them, another athlete, someone that they're competing with, that becomes the emphasis, trying to beat that person. And if they don't, now they feel bad. You want the elite level to be, one, you hope that you have someone that they can chase, because that's going to get more out of them. And then two, if that person starts beating them, can mentally, the athlete that you're working with or whatever, can they handle that frustration? Can they manage the frustration? Because that's what's going to happen on the floor. There's going to be times where all of a sudden they're in a heated race, they get no rep, and now they're behind, even though it wasn't a no rep. And it's like, can they come back from that? I mean, I would love working with some of my athletes. This was back in the day when we had more here at the gym, where I'd intentionally call a no rep and make them have to do that rep over again, solely for the reason of being able to handle that mentally. So I think there's a huge element of that. I think that I really do like the group environment, whether it is a team, whether it is high-end athletes, whether it is a small group setting in a normal CrossFit gym. I think that there are massive benefits to that. For you to be able to train with like the Valley Girls, even if you were just a regular member at the time, knowing that now, it's like you got to have some of the best athletes in the world around you. It's like, how can you not be stoked to go and get work, go and work out with that? Like that's a big deal. Whether you get your ass kicked or not, like, doesn't even matter. You get to be in there with them and going at it, and that's cool. So I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of pluses to that.
I agree, man. I think the community element is such a magical ingredient within the CrossFit arena. And when you look at that, how lucky are we? You got to experience it a little bit at the firehouse, maybe a little bit, when you were lifeguarding and teaching a little bit with your peers. But most people have this unique connection with a circle of friends in high school. And then some people maybe join a sports team in college, or maybe a fraternity or sorority. But then after that, life gets a little bit more lonely for a lot of people. They don't have that same common group that every day you have a meeting hub that's at the gym, and you're there to get better and talk some shop and share about your life, your family, your day. Sometimes that's having a person to vent to. Sometimes that's a highlight reel. Sometimes that's becoming a master of the mundane. And how lucky is this, CrossFit community to have a hub to share in this commonality of, we're going to suffer and become better human beings within the process.
I mean, they would joke about, CrossFitters being in a cult and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is that every single team that I was on was the same sort of way. You had your high-end badasses. You had your general group that were all in there just kind of brawling. You had people that you definitely knew you could crush them in whatever if it was wrestling or swimming or football or whatever. They were in the mix. They were always part of the landscape, and everybody enjoyed the whole picture of it. And I think that that's huge. You're right. When you get older, it's you miss that stuff. If your family life isn't the greatest, then you don't have that to really, to lean on. Or a lot of people, it's like they lean on that, and then it's like, can you just get out of my face for a little while? Like, go work out, go do something. So, I think that there really is a good thing for it. I mean, that's why the COVID thing was so hard, because it took that away from everyone. And I mean, we tried really hard with the Zoom thing. And I will say that I think compared to most gyms that I talked to, we did way better Zoom wise than a lot of places. And I'd like to think that that's because of myself and my coaching staff. Whenever we were on, I mean, we would have to put on a show and try to be dynamic and try to be engaging and talk to everyone as they're out there. And we did other things on Zoom as well, like, social things, to make it so that when we're training at the same time, that it's more normal. It doesn't feel normal to go out and train on those things, and it's not the best option. But if that's the only option that you have, it's still better than not having that option. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think the Zoom thing was really challenging for a lot of gyms, a lot of people, as they were isolated and trying to figure out how to develop consistent routine with limited equipment, different energy, maybe not the same space allocation, and this cognitive fog around uncertainty, fear, doubt. And I always think it's so cool that everybody did their absolute best to seek to connect, seek understanding, and to try to really, share a common ground through movement, whatever that was. And so that's really cool that you were able to kind of maintain that within your CrossFit Inferno community. Moving forward, I want to ask you like a unique comparison. And so when I've been to many gyms around the country, you typically see like a regular group class. Maybe you have some sort of specialty classes, and then that kind of funnels towards like a comp class. And so the generalized progression to the novice member is, hey, I come in, I take my on-ramp or fundamentals, I learn the general movement protocols, then I take group class for a while when I feel like I'm finishing at the top of the leaderboard and I'm very consistent and proficient in those movements. Maybe I seek either some private coaching, maybe a specialty class, or it's time for me to move on into a comp class. This is great for some people, typically if they have those competitive goals. But what I want to help educate people on is this relationship between CrossFit health and training for health and well-being to optimize your life, and CrossFit sport, and where those differentiate and how people can understand that, like, hey, you can still have awesome body composition and do some really cool things without all the crazy complexity that carries with it a higher risk.
Man, that's such a good one. I've been saying it for a long time. And being an athlete, I've always been an advocate for those that have goals to be competitive. But even with that, I have also said a lot, whether it's here on the gym floor or in a different podcast or different broadcasts or whatever, that there is a difference between CrossFit, the fitness program, and CrossFit, the sport. And that's not to say that you aren't doing different movements. If you want to be a competitor, you need to do these sort of lifts. And if you want to be just healthy, you do these sort of lifts. It matters what the goal is that you're trying to do. First of all, I think that for a competitor to be good, they have to be very selfish. They have to, and that's not I don't mean that in a bad way. They have to train for themselves. They have to put in more time. They have to put in more effort. They have to get more skills. If they are lacking, they need to either pay for meal preps or do different meal type eating, or they need to have their body worked on by ART people or massage people or mobility people, or have an Olympic lifting coach or a gymnastic coach or whatever. And that's because they have those goals that they're wanting to achieve. The problem is that as they do that, they inadvertently will pull themselves away from the community that brought them in and supported them a lot of times. And I mean, we had this issue, and as far as I can tell, most gyms do. It's we're trying to do something big. You're just a regular CrossFitter, so I'm going to use this bar, and I'm going to grab these things, and you're going to let me have these things because I am athlete so-and-so, and I'm going to do whatever so-and-so. Or they don't talk to anyone as they kind of walk through the gym, and it's like, man, what you want these guys to support you when you go out in these competitions and, you know, buy your shirts and help get you money to go there and all these things, but you don't even say hi to them. Like, there was always a disconnect between those levels of people, and I always thought that was tough. I think that it's important, if you have an in-house athlete, that they be involved in your community. And I think the first group that I saw do this was when Ben Bergeron did the Comp Train. The way he designed the Comp Train program, whether it was the open division, the regional level, or the games level, everyone did the basic class, which was the open level. So that kept everyone being able to work out together. So you could have your high-end athletes working out at the same time with your general classes. Your general class people would go and off to the rest of their day, and now your athlete person would go and do the other pieces that they needed to do. And I loved that because it kept the community together. It showed that we are all one big community, one big group, one big family, one big team. This person has to go home to their kids and their wife and their husband and their job or whatever, and this kid over here has 4 more hours that they are going to do nothing before their school, or their parents are paying for everything, and so they're going to do nothing but hang out in the gym all day long, but they're going to do these other workouts on top of that. But it kept everyone together, and everyone felt unified. When those groups were split heavily, then I think that was a tough position. I think it works if you have classes at one time. If you have people that are like totally split, if you have classes at one time, and then there is a break time when you then have your open gym so that those athletes can do their thing. So there is a separation, because then I don't feel like you don't care about me, and you don't feel like I think you're a douchebag because you're so-and-so and you're the one that just took my bar because it was the good Ohio bar that I accidentally grabbed, even though it was in the rack of all the other bars, whatever the situation is. So it's hard. I mean, it's hard to blend the two. But then it also, I think, takes the coaches and the owner of the gym to explain that position. This person has a goal, that's why they're doing this. You have a goal, that's why we're having you do this. It takes the expertise of the coach and the programmer of the gym that everyone's doing the workouts, to where if everyone's coming in to do the workout, okay, they're not going to not do the gym workout because that's the quote-unquote soccer mom workout. That all they do is they run around the building a bunch of times, and maybe they do a handful of wall balls and kettlebells because they don't want to use barbells, because barbells is too heavy and they're just going to get whatever. It's like, no, if you are a good enough programmer and a coach, you should be able to understand that, okay, if this person over here this is their only workout of the day. Are they lifting large loads long distances quickly? Are they doing constantly varied function movements on a high intensity? Are they varying their load, their volume, and the time frame? Are they doing light stuff, heavy stuff, moderate stuff? Are they doing gymnastic stuff or versions of that? Are they able to get all the scales and modifications of that to where it's not a watered down version of what the advanced people are doing? It's a level that we program for the best and modify for the rest. And because you're an athlete, you can go over here afterwards and do some strength stuff or your gymnastic capacity stuff or whatever. And because you're a regular member over here, you just got a kick-ass workout that worked great for you, and your body's going to look good, and you're going to feel good, and you're moving well, and you're burning calories, and you're building muscle and everything else, and you're going to get to go home and go, damn, I look good naked. I mean, that's what it comes down to. That's why when I've seen a lot of articles come out about, people complaining about how expensive CrossFit is. It's like, do you understand what they have to do? A CrossFit owner and a coach has to do a lot of things. Ideally, and I'm not saying everybody does this, but ideally, the CrossFit coach is not pushing the clock and saying 3, 2, 1, go. They're able to give you what you need. Whether that's the programming, whether that's the cueing, whether that's the technique, whether that's the information of why you're doing this and how. and then giving it to her like, okay, you're the athlete. Okay, you guys over there. I mean, we've even had it where our athletes, they were doing other people's programs, and I would tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm cool with that, but if you're gonna do that and you want to be part of the family here, twice a week, come in and do the class. I go, do you think my program is gonna be weak on you? No. It will kick your ass, and then you can go back and do whatever other stuff is on your program you got to do. But I think it's important to keep that family together. I think it's really important.
Most athletes are compensated for being influencers, not necessarily compensated for being athletes. But I think we're starting to see that change a little bit. We're starting to see sponsors jump in. We're starting to see, the winnings be a little bit higher at some of these competitions. What are your thoughts in chiming in around, the monetization and professionalization of the sport of CrossFit?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to be a part of it on different angles, from many different angles. Well, the event side, my real north on that for us as an organization at Loud and Live was how do we create, greater earning opportunities for athletes. For me, that's a perfect, way to operate if you're a business in this space. Because I think the trickle down from that is really what will help you be successful as an event organizer in business. And I think that's why we were successful with Wadapalooza or West Coast Classic or Granite Games, is because, we focused on, being athlete first and like really trying to give back to the people that I think drew a lot of attention to what we were doing. So you need to reward those things, greed, not be greedy with, sort of the growth. Because I had a lot of trust when I went into that, right? Like, so I think a lot of people realize that, like, when I went into those, that was my next evolution. I sort of could have armed people and been like, hey, Matt, do this work, do this for me, Tia, this, Katrin, come here and like, just help me. Like, I've helped you, you helped me. Instead, it was like, no, like, this is easy. Like, I'm just going to like make it a hell yeah for them and like pay them more money. Like when they win and give back. And I know how to grow this business and, get people to partner. It creates an awesome ecosystem. So that part, like, I've really been proud of being a part of that. And, honestly, the eyeballs are the key to that. Like, we need to continue to create like really interesting storylines and, make it attractive for people to watch and attend, because in the end, you can't raise the bar on prize money if people aren't investing in it, like consumers and brands, right? So all that stuff needs to tie back to more people wanting to watch it and do it, right? That's where the Open ties into this thing and makes it great too. It's just like, where there's hundreds of thousands of people competing, that's a cool segment of people that are probably buying a lot of products and showing up for Wadapalooza to either compete or attend. That thing keeps growing every year. It's awesome, So, that part's been really cool. We still got a lot of work to do. We want the athletes to, not cost athletes money to participate, right? Like, I think in the grand scheme of things, like getting more depth in the field of people that can really train on a daily basis to be great. Because, like guys like Matt and Tia and Katrin and all these people you described, with Brooke and Justin, they have success and they can reinvest in their success, which is what they do because they're super smart. And just like, how do I, gain more resources to get better? And does that separate them more? Probably. I mean, they work harder than anybody in the world too. So, there's a, but what role does those 1% and 2% play in the overall, success and, the longevity of their career? It's hard to quantify that exactly, but it's a differentiator. Mm-hmm. But there's more depth too now today, which is I'm incredibly proud of. People getting paid, because people are really getting attached to the storyline. It's marketable. There's more brands coming in from the outside. There's billions of dollars flowing through this market. So, we just started working with a girl, Ellie Turner. Daniel has been working with her really closely, the guy that works with me on the athlete management stuff. And, it's really cool to see Ellie realize, the ability to train full time through some stuff that brands are willing to do with her. And, I know who Ellie is, and she competed at Waza. She had a really good start to that weekend. She has a really bright future from what everybody can see, but I don't think not everybody knows who Ellie is. But people like Ellie are getting paid now and looked at people are trying to invest in the future and, look at people like her and be like, okay, who is going to be the face of the sport forward? It's really fun right now, honestly, dude. I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of guys like Coop that have made their life and career of it and fought really hard for athletes, advocated in tough times. Together we did as groups, and then individually we do now for those that are our clients. But yeah, honestly, it's that's like really one of the more rewarding things I've ever experienced in my life is just seeing people realize dreams, be able to do things more the way they want to do them, that help them then accomplish more goals, financially, particularly. The business side, where it was in 13 to where it is today, is insane. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely evolved a ton. And just the involvement from really good brands that are positively impacting. They're not just throwing products around. They're actually like really cool products. And one of the amazing brands that you've helped grow, I think it's one of the largest growing companies, is Noble. And we're seeing what they're doing, man. I think they're the title sponsor now for PGA golf training. And they're involved with swim. They're involved with so many different things. Can you touch a little bit on your involvement with Noble and then some of the cool things that you guys are doing? They're not just in CrossFit. They are expanding outside of the box, and it is really freaking cool to see.
Yeah, it's so fun and rewarding. Those guys are really good friends first. I met Marcus, Todd, Michael early on. Before I think Noble was even a dream. Marcus was a member at CrossFit New England. Those guys are from Reebok originally, broke off and had this dream and this idea, Noble. And I had their first athlete, Brooke Entz. We worked very closely together, and those guys, I'm so proud of their success, but what they built, they've worked so hard and they've been so, remember what we were talking about on the front end, like hyper focusing on brand, your own brand and your messaging. They're the best at it. They have defined that. They've never sat in a meeting and said, what's XYZ company doing? We've got to react. They've always said, what are we going to do? What is Noble going to do? And today it's it's going to be one of the great American, sport business stories in history when this is done. That's pretty heady stuff. It's true though. That's not me just being a flag bearing, waving Noble guy. They just announced a partnership with PGA Tour as the official training shoe and apparel brand of the PGA Tour. That is insane. With guys that were slinging shoes out of their garage 5 years ago. So you can't just go to the PGA Tour and say, hey, I want to be the sponsor of the training and shoe and apparel. First of all, they've never done a shoe and apparel deal ever. So this is their first. And so training being the unique approach. And I've had a lot of history with the tour because I'm a golfer, and they have an active platform, which now Noble owns. It's the presenting partner of PGA Tour Active, which I think we're going to help them evolve. And, I've tried to help the tour with that over the last few years and made a lot of friends internal. So it's a really proud moment, where I have a couple worlds collide in golf and fitness, and golf and fitness have a lot of potential forward. There's, it's a really cool crowd. The communities are very similar, and people are looking to get, better at this insane. They have the people who golf have this insane dedication to better. It's people wanting to lower their handicap. It's a really cool crowd. It's very similar to the CrossFit crowd. And so I'm really interested to see what that looks like, and excited Noble is going to be a big part of that. And myself too, for the next 5 years with that. My role with them is advisor, consultant on league partnerships. I've helped them with the stuff with CrossFit, and I've helped them with PGA and will forward. So it's just I pinch myself that I get to be a part of stuff like that and help with that. And this move for me was I get to get more focused on some things like Matt, HWPO, Noble, my relationship there, and continuing to support athletes, whereas the event business was chaos. So I was like all over the place.
There's a lot going on all the time for sure.
I love what I did there, but this is really fun. But yeah, Noble is they're building a headquarters in Boston. They have golf specific products too, so they're really emerging in other sports. A lot of other sports. I think people are like, oh, a small CrossFit brand, and I think for a long time they thrived on that, where they were just kind of like, we're not as small as you think we are. They're not as small as you think they are. Like, not you, but in general, right? Like they are a powerhouse and player in sport, and they have NFL players. Like, there's 300 NFL players that have requested their product. Like, they have nothing to do with, like, they have a official partnership with Mac Jones, the quarterback of the New England Patriots, and a couple other players, but they've like embedded themselves in the NFL. Like, the NFL players love to train in their stuff, and like they've built that trust with people off the field. And it's the story with golf that they're telling really well. And I think a lot of brands will take recognition of this, but it's just, they want to talk about how Scott Stallings, works his ass off in the gym to be best on the field or whatever he does. They're your brand for that. Like, it's the magic with them. And, it's what people, I've just seen it all around me. My wife wears it all the time. She identifies with it. It's like her brand of choice. She grinds in it, and it makes her a better mom and a better employee. Like, they've crushed it with that messaging. And, I'm excited for them, honestly. Like, I'm really humbled.
I am too, man. Some of the things they've done are just very cool. I mean, their product is very sleek. It's attractive. I think Caleb Dressel did okay at the Olympics.
He's an awesome kid. Yeah, it's cool to spend some time with guys like him. I just was I was at the PGA Champion. I was at the Players Championship with them because it was sort of the launch of the partnership, and we got to hang out with Mac. We activated around Mac at the event. Did a workout with him. Just like, that's, the people they have involved are like just all really good people. Like, Caleb is an awesome kid. Mac is stud, like super nice guy, just very grateful and, just lives the Noble lifestyle. Like, they're like, Scott's the same. I've spent a lot of time with Scott lately. Like, I've been out roaming around with him a little bit on tour, but they got a cool crew. That's
rad, man. Don't hurt your back caddying for all these guys, man. Make sure they caddy for you too.
Yeah. That's been so much fun. If you were to say what's your favorite sport, I would say golf, right? So, like, I've grown up watching, that's what I've geeked out on. I'm a huge sports fan, but, so to be able to be out there a little bit and, be inside the ropes, sitting on I went to the Phoenix Open, was my first time I carried for him. And I've been to that as a fan before, but like, I'm on the range, and like the people that are like, he knows Scott because we're like super tight, and he knows, that I'm an incredible golf fan. And like, we're hitting next to, Stuart Sink, he's won the British Open, and Ricky Fowler, and, all these guys. And he's just laughing at me because I'm not like a fan guy. Like, I would never like cross a line probably, but I'm just kind of like, it's my first moment. Like, he's over there chipping, and it's like Phil Mickelson and all these guys, and it's like, it's kind of cool for me. Like, I've studied all these guys, and they've all had like micro pieces of what they do that have really defined, how I am as a businessman, or, and I've pursued some golf stuff. So it's just kind of cool to be out there. I geek out on that.
That's really cool, man. I'm so stoked you get to experience that. Do you think you could fix Charles Barkley's swing?
I think somebody did, by the way. He's because he played in one of those matches recently with the Capital One things that they've been doing, and the hitch is gone. So
wow, shout out to you, Charles. I'm sure that took a lot of time, energy, and effort.
That's tough to watch.
Amazing basketball player. I love listening to him with the TNT crew, but man, that swing was hard to watch for a few years.
By the way, and I got to give a shout out because I think you had a partner of yours, Trident Coffee.
Is Trident Coffee.
Yeah, they sent me those cans. They are amazing. I didn't have one today because I went through them all. So I've been drinking them every day. I should have saved
that's
one.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for sending that out.
They're really great, man. They're a super awesome company that's out here. I'd love to link you with them. They're doing some really cool things with brands.
Cool.
And they're linked with a few NFL guys too. But more importantly, man, as you mentioned, do the right thing, do the next right thing. And Eric Johnson, their owner and CEO, does an amazing job of storytelling, and it's a great product, man. Like they do some really cool things with the military.
SEAL? Is he a retired SEAL?
Not SEAL, but he is a retired Navy veteran. You can check out his story at tridentcoffee.com. Their ethos is really cool, and how he really wanted to bridge the gap between where he was in Afghanistan and with kind of what the Americans were doing over there. And I think you would really align with the storytelling component of what he's doing. And obviously their coffee's great, man. Nice little jolt to start the day.
It was awesome. It tastes great. Not many people can do canned nitro very well. They did it.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. Magical people, man. Last question for you, buddy. When you're looking at the development of sport, we've talked a little bit about the PGA Tour. I think CrossFit has kind of aligned with maybe the X Games, maybe the World Surf League, and maybe the PGA Tour or the tennis tour. Do you think that CrossFit could kind of get aligned with some of those sports that are a little bit more recognized in the broad and inclusive world?
Yeah, I mean, kind of put my, like, if I was going to be the visionary for it forward, how might I approach it? There's sport and then there's sort of like the methodology, but I think the tie back, to get where I think you're talking about would be for, them really to inspire the next generation to train this way for sport too. Right. And it's something that I'm really intent on with Matt, being a beacon with, we think that, this methodology is a really good solution, whether it's life or for sport. And we're planning on really attacking with, finding expertise in football or whatever it might be to just help speak to people like that better. But I think that that's really like a really good opportunity for us in general on the sports side. The more, integrated we are in other sports, because training is our sport, I think that helps then the sport platform grow. Honestly, if we could say that we'd be more like golf, I'd be like, that's a pretty good north to be, golf and tennis are pretty good sports to kind of like point towards. I mean, they're insanely massive global sports. So just, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, like, I mean, nobody needs to worry about that. Like, we'll see what it looks like, 50 years from now, what, where we're at and do we exist and how does it look? But, I think there's a lot of change in a good way. I think, some settling will be really good for us as a market and as a sport. But, I think, one thing I want people to realize too on the sports, like when people are saying things like, oh man, everything changes so constantly with this thing. Well, that's the way like hockey was 100 years ago. And that's the way NFL was, 50, 60 years ago. It's just like tinkering, people trying to find the right way and the right way to approach this. And now look, there's a Super Bowl that's 50, whatever, 60, years old. That's the largest sporting event viewed in the world every year, right? Like that didn't look like that back then. So, at least, we're very popular. People engage it. They're accepting the change and we're still growing. And we got people that, are trying to help it evolve to look more like those things. But I think if we could look like a golf tour or a tennis tour more over time, which, I know is, things that, their, CrossFit leadership, I'm sure would pinch themselves if they looked more like, and I know they're working really hard to do that. I think we would have won, honestly. That would be like a really good destination. So, but the battle's on. Like we're still working really hard for that. I think that's like a really good way to wrap a bow on it too. Is like all this crap that's gone on, like particularly the last few years, is like, there's seemingly people fighting for real estate at times, and like there's egos involved, and I think less now today than maybe in the past. And now like this sort of north and beacon is the sport and the athletes and the story, which is great, right? And I think now that's a really cool evolution. But I will say, like, no matter what, like, and I don't agree with some things that have happened, and maybe some don't with some things, way we've processed things at times as an athlete core, but everybody wants the same thing, which is success and growth. And, I think more uniquely in this space, particularly over the last couple of years, than I think others. A lot of people have taken a lot of, things on the chin for the greater good, and I think that that's really, that's really cool and something that we're very fortunate, like, athletes that had a lot to lose in moments were willing to put those things on the line for the betterment of the long term of the sport. We got a really unique, cool crowd. And I think that's why we're continuing to evolve and grow. And I'm really excited to see what that looks like in the next 10 years. The last 10 have been exciting and massive growth. And like even today with some stuff that's been a little crazy, we're still growing. So the business side's wild, and there are more people want to tell stories around it. So I'm here to watch it and help with it. And I'm excited to see where it ends up.
I'm right there with you, brother. I really appreciate your time, your energy, your presence, and your storytelling today, and most importantly, your vulnerability. I know that's not always easy. What can people expect from Matt O'Keefe in the remainder of 2022 as we've got quarterfinals coming up in a week or so?
I'll be grinding. We moved platforms, so we're on our own app officially now. We're just trying to get the messaging out to people, where we're at, which is, challenging yet fun. I love challenges. So, but we're working hard on that and then improving. We've got, we're going to, be a business that constantly evolves. And, we really moved to our own platform and, partnered with these guys from Fitter to do that because people wanted a new look, and they wanted our own platform, something of their own, and they wanted things to look differently. So I'll be really working really hard on what the evolution of HWPO looks like. And we've got a ton going on. Like we're programming competitions around the world, and we got a tour in Europe coming up in the fall in September. So, no rest for the weary. I think, I will be home planning a lot more of these things rather than on the road in Florida. But I'm recharged and ready to rock. Spent the last few days through this launch with our new team, some people that, had worked on this but are now full time. And man, I'm so charged up. I guess I like the beginning and the middle and and just like growing things. But this is, man, I'm like in the perfect place for me. And I am working with people I adore and love, and, and we're grinding together, and I'm having so much fun. So I'm back and going to be working my ass off just like I always have been, and I'll be around.
I love it, man. I can feel and see the passion all over your face. Well, congratulations on the launch, and please say hello to the team for me. If anybody wants to hop on and have a solid conversation, I'm always down to connect with your crew. Thank you so much, my man. 2 important factors for us over at Invictus Mindset are true care and attention to detail. My friends over at RX Smart Gear have been bringing innovative fitness tools to the market since 2009. From their award-winning Evo speed ropes to their amazing gymnastics grips to their line of inflatable fitness equipment, they're constantly looking to problem solve within the fitness industry. They're always allowing us to have our gear work for us rather than against us. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use discount code Invictus Mindset to shop their latest cutting edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you. There are opportunities. You still had to take action with them. And you and I both know this entrepreneurial space is a little bit lonely sometimes. Sometimes you don't know the path. There's not necessarily a roadmap that they deliver to your front door when you're trying to figure it out in this entrepreneurial world and building a brand and, subtly having to walk on eggshells a little bit and be careful with your words because of the legalities associated with the history of CrossFit Inc. and some of the other organizations that seemingly rub elbows with them. And so it's a little bit of a foreign territory. What was that like? And how did you and Sean ultimately start Talking Elite Fitness and, kind of find your way again after this moment of challenge?
So, I believe Sean's final day was maybe December 5th, somewhere around there. And I was like, hey man, take some time. I really want to do this. And I think this is an opportunity, a really good opportunity for us to do, something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but also to like keep our edge as, analysts and stay involved and until, we ultimately sort out what it is going to be our best path for us. And he was pretty receptive to it for sure. I had also had more time to process, and physically be away from CrossFit to kind of like reset my head and like get ready to like get back on the horse a bit. And to be fair, I also think it was also it was a different sort of, I don't want to say trauma, because I think that for what was actually happening and maybe a little bit over dramatizing it, but they had to, Sean for six weeks had to go back into the office with all the empty offices around him were all of his buddies that weren't there now, like the people that did have to stay around had to do so in almost like a shell of a scenario that compared to what it used to be. And I think that was its own like element that needed to be processed as well. So Sean was, rightfully so, came back, was like, hey, I'm going to take, the holidays, spend some time with my family. And like, we can talk about it after, around the new year. And so we came back around New Year's and I'm like, listen, I want to do a podcast. I want to do this. I think it would be cool. He's like, yeah, I think I could be into that. Let's see how it goes. And he was like, I think a podcast is a good way for us to put out a decent quality thing without needing all the bells and whistles that we were used to working, with the backing of a corporation. And I hit up Heber and Marston. And this is kind of a theme for, I think, the last 3 years is like, we always try to find ways to work with other people and work with our friends and people that we care about, because ultimately that takes away from some of the loneliness that the entrepreneurial lifestyle could be. And they're like, yeah, let's absolutely do it. They were still living in Santa Cruz at the time as well. So it was a little different setup. And we recorded our first two podcasts. One, which was a preview of Wodapalooza, which was happening the first week of January. And another one, which was like this catch-all, like the state of the CrossFit Games type thing, like what had happened to us, how it unfolded, and our thoughts on it. And that was, oh man, I'm glad we deleted that first episode, because it was just us just emptying the tank on a microphone. It was like a full-on therapy session, and we got through it. We're like, okay, that one's out. We got to redo this one. We did it again, and I want to say we got about halfway through, and we're like, maybe we should restart one more time. Like, we still had a few more things to get out, and now we're starting to find it. And then that third recording, we got something that we felt was much more balanced and open and honest without being spiteful. And
people don't realize that about the podcast space. Dave Grohl, I think, from the Foo Fighters summed it up really well. You got to get in the lab. You got to get in the garage. You got to suck a little bit. Then you got to get a little bit better. You got to get used to hearing your voice. You got to like say things that you're like, ooh, I probably shouldn't say that, or I shouldn't say it like that. And then all of a sudden you start to find a rhyme and a reason. And I think it's important for people to note and have that in their back pocket to realize like we're all just humans trying to figure it out, man.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you said that. Foo Fighters are my favorite band. And I think Dave Grohl is just awesome.
I love it, man. Quick little side note. My sister's really good friends with Taylor Hawkins, the drummer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see if we can create a little connection here, man.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Man, I'm gonna fanboy out. Their Foo Fighters have got me through some tough times and some good times too. So
I dig it, man.
That's for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say that, once we got on the other side of those first couple episodes, and I think Sean and I were like, all right, yeah, this is something we can do. And we set out some very conservative goals for how and what we wanted to do as far as like trying to support ourselves financially. Mm-hmm. Sean has a booming golden voice. And so he's always going to be able to work, using his voice and calling live events. And he is such a professional in that regard. Like, we knew that like you have to stay in the space, man. Like, you're the voice. Like, people want to hear from you, and this is just another avenue for us to do that. And we were very fortunate that we had some people that in good faith gave us the opportunity just to have a chat with them, whether it was athletes and people in the space. And, ultimately, we kept going out there. So like I went out to Dubai, went and covered that event, helped out there, went to Wadapalooza that first year. The previous 2 years I had been there scouting for CrossFit, just scouting athletes. And I reached out to Loud and Live was now operating Wadapalooza. And I reached out to Matt O'Keefe and Dylan. And I was like, hey, just throwing my name out there. If you guys need help, let me know. I would love to be a part of it. And I basically had an unpaid job. They're like, hey, we'll put you up and bring you out here, but we can't pay you. Like, we need someone just to like MC this. And I was like, sure, you got it. Like, I just wanted to be there. I wanted to be in the space, see people, be seen and just continue to be a presence, because I felt that was important, and I'm also like, as much as I disagreed with the decision to let us go, I was still very heavily invested in the sport and I wanted the support and community to succeed. So I had to kind of put my own personal misgivings aside for what I thought was the greater good overall, and supporting athletes and supporting brands and supporting people in this space that didn't do that thing that I was bitter about to me, and that ultimately I wanted to see succeed as well. So kept doing that, and then started hitting the road more, covering the sanctionals events, and opportunities kind of presented themselves from there.
That's so awesome, man. I love that you reached out to Matt O'Keefe too. He's another guy that I was able to connect and have a really awesome conversation with, and I'm really excited for what's to come for him. And dude, I feel like I could chat with you for 4 hours, and so to be respectful of your time, I'm gonna spitball a few things at you, and
sure.
Let's see if we can like get a quick little knee-jerk reaction from you on some of these more prominent controversial topics within the sport.
Okay.
Greg Glassman, inappropriate comments via Twitter on during the Black Lives Matter movement, made some monumental changes within the sport of CrossFit, the leadership of CrossFit, ultimately led to Eric Rosa kind of taking over. What are some quick thoughts that you have on that topic?
Change was needed for some time, and I think that highlighted why.
Totally. And Dave Castro, man, that was kind of big news for us early on here in 2022. I think a lot of people anticipated some change either taking place right when Rosa was hired or after this CrossFit Games season, but happened at a little bit of a unique time. Thoughts?
Tough, man. I think, obviously Dave has been monumental to the sport, and he's a big part of why I was able to do what I love and do what I do. And I also think that there can exist two realities where we can acknowledge the impact that Dave had and understand that we wouldn't be here without him, while also accepting the fact that, this new leadership and new team wants to go just in a different direction. And that's just, that's a part of it. And I've been a byproduct of that as well, and had to deal with that as well.
Totally. The most recent, very controversial sponsorship with Monster Energy. Obviously, the sport needs to grow and evolve and start to monetize things a little bit better so athletes can make a living, but sometimes a little bit controversial given the health and wellness relationship CrossFit has within the space. What are your thoughts there?
I would like to see people be more prudent in using that same energy that they have across the entirety of the history of CrossFit. I think a lot of people are being, I don't want to say myopic because that's a little too harsh, but I think that it is a much more nuanced discussion and existence than people realize. And I think there's also an opportunity for, a company like Monster to come in, support the sport, and as a result, support CrossFit in their ability to meet their global mission. And do so without compromising and undermining that mission entirely, which I think some people are afraid of. And so I think that it's an important discussion to have and something that needs to keep on going. So we make sure that that relationship continues to act in good faith, but also that, sometimes there are things that exist outside of our framework of what we see as acceptable that can be beneficial as well.
Totally. I mean, you saw the early days in the NBA. Sprite commercials, we still see those sometimes. We also see, McDonald's commercials with some of these athletes. And you brought up, the way you verbalized that was very, very cool. I appreciated that.
one of the first sponsors of the CrossFit Games was Panda Express. So
Yeah.
people don't remember that.
Oh man, that chow mein.
Oh man, I'm a Beijing beef guy.
There you go. There you go. There's so much that we could chat about, man, but just popped up on my phone about an hour or so ago of Eric Rosa stepping down as the CrossFit CEO to move to a board chairman. What are your knee-jerk thoughts on that?
I think that, again, I think there's more to this than people might realize. I think that this was probably always in the plan for Eric to oversee the transition and the first couple of years, and then maybe move into more of a behind the scenes type role as chairman of the board, because he did come out of retirement to do that. And I think some of the, his publicly announced, issues and things like that for him were a signal that maybe this needs to accelerate accelerate the process and needs to happen sooner. So I don't see it as this happened, so as a result this happened. I don't necessarily know if this, like Dave's situation and this situation, are tied at the hip the way some people may see it. Although I would caution people to don't let this get sensationalized by people who are just trying to like rabble rouse, I guess.
Totally. There's always more to the story than we can typically see. And
100%.
I also think it's important to make note of, some of the mental health challenges. I mean, it's not easy taking over a brand new company. There's a lot of pressure involved. When you make a decision like letting go of Dave Castro, I mean, you get a lot of nuance and a lot of backlash, it's heavy, man. It's really heavy.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody's just trying to do the best that they can. And coming up in a couple weeks, man, we've got the CrossFit Open. I think it's an exciting time of year. It's 3 weeks now, which is awesome for affiliates because it doesn't drag out the processes and procedures within the gym. Typically 4 scores, one of those workouts typically having a lift or 2 scores inputted. What are your thoughts on the upcoming CrossFit Open? And I'll just throw it in there. Who are some of your, let's go top 3 male, top 3 female, and then top 3 teams that are in your conversation?
Ooh, all right. So it's just for the whole season?
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually think that the games did a tremendous job last year of filtering the top 3 men. I think very clearly that Fikowski, Vellner, and Medeiros are the top 3 men out there, period. I think over history, I think the breadth of work for Vellner and Fikowski stand as proof, and that they're now kind of healthy and getting the benefit of, getting to tackle the entirety of the games test without all these like weird cuts and things that happened early in the process in the past couple of years. So I think very much those are like the top 3 for me. And I think you could put BKG in there on any given year, kind of hovering around as a 3A type athlete. As far as the women, I mean, number 1's taken. It has been taken for a while, and it's going to continue to be taken from.
She's also got a chip on her shoulder based on recent events.
Ooh, man, I mean, I can't wait to see it too. And I think we started to see, to make a Dragon Ball Z reference, kind of her go into her final form, like full Super Saiyan, and after she won the Open last year, which is a place where typically Tia, doesn't run away with things just because it's not her focus. So I think Tia, I think we're going to see a bit of a resurgence from Katrin. I will consistently have her in my top 3 scenario, very similar to Annie, where you can see some seesaw from year to year. But if you look over the last like 6 to 7 years, Katrin has arguably been the second or third best CrossFitter alongside of Annie over the course of their history. So I think historically speaking, they deserve that. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Mal in the podium hunt this year along with Haley. But I do still think that Laura Horvath deserves to be in that conversation.
Oh, that's cool. That's fair.
Obviously, 2018, she podiums and she had a rough couple of years, but I think similar to Vellner and Fikowski, when you give her the full runway, and you give her some time to, express the full breadth of skills across an entire weekend, she's just consistently up there, performing well at the top of these events. So I think she has matured in a way that will allow her to do that more consistently at the games.
And when we see some of the shakeup on the team side of things, the talk of the town seems to be this move to Iceland for some of these athletes. What are your thoughts there? And do you think Mayhem can still continue to dominate in that world?
I think Mayhem will still win. I think there is a lot that goes into the team competition and managing the season and managing athletes and personalities and things like that. That the community environment around Cookeville has proven successful more so than any other place on the planet. I do think Annie and them will definitely contend and be an immediate threat to that. Although I do think that 2019 was a great example where we had all these super teams showing up, out of the woodwork. But in the end, Mayhem still won, going away because of all the elements of teamwork and stuff that get tested properly at the games. And so I think we'll still see them win. I would be shocked if that Iceland team wasn't in second or at least third, like took a medal home. They're just too talented, and there's too much team experience amongst all of those athletes, even in the absence of Annie ever going team at the games. But I think if they decide to stick with it, you can't discount the crew out of Norway. So it was the Oslo Wolfpack. Last year it was the Krieger team that won Wadapalooza alongside Kristen Holte. I think Norway in general is, there's a storm brewing out there with some of those athletes, and we're seeing more and more start to show up as individuals with Jacqueline Dahlstrom. I think Matilda Garns is another individual athlete that's going to break through eventually. And we're just starting to see more talent coming out of that region because it's recognized as a sport there nationally. And there is, national funding going towards it to allow athletes to pursue that as a profession. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the crew out of Oslo putting up another podium performance this year.
Totally, man. It's also really cool to see how you light up when I start, poking the bear a little bit in your day-to-day craft.
I guess I really do love this stuff.
Yeah, you do, man. You definitely light up. Final thoughts on this year's CrossFit Games season that we're getting ready to embark on?
There's a lot of excitement for me. That's really what it comes down to. Excitement that we're in year 2 of this 3-week open, so affiliates and people can better plan around it. Year 2 of the semifinals, so more people can plan and get ready for live competition, and we're seeing more live competition be able to take place. And then excitement around what, we can't skirt around the fact that this is going to be the first season without Dave Castro. Mm-hmm. And what is that going to look like? And how does that set the tone for what the future of the sport and the community is going to be? And, a lot of people might be uncertain about that, but I'm certainly excited to see, as with any opportunity, what can come out of this. So
I love that, man. I'm excited for the open announcement and how that kind of goes. Yeah. Last question for you, Tommy. If you could have a billboard based on, your journey, your experience so far, what would you like that billboard to say? And what would you like to share with the world?
Ooh. Oh, man. That's a really good question. You kind of caught me on my heels a little bit.
That's why I really like it. I mean, it's something that I think, it's a message that you can kind of share. And I like getting people to think a little bit on their toes there because it usually comes out with authenticity.
Yeah. I'm sure I could, there's probably something that's less like cliche, I guess, but I have it tattooed on me as part of, a bit of a tribute to, some of my loved ones that I've lost is in every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. And I think ultimately for me and like the opportunities that I've had and the life that I've lived so far, that has proven true more often than not. And I think it's, sometimes we need to be reminded of the cliche and basic stuff because it has proven true time and time again.
Totally, man. What has that experience been like, analyzing the sport and, talking to people like myself around controversial topics, which it's not always easy, right? Sometimes you say something that you're like, oh, I misspoke a little bit, but now it's on air, so everybody's going to rip me to shreds on whatever platform. Yeah. Like, what has this whole journey kind of meant to you? And how does it feel to be a part of that team? That's a pretty cool evolution for you.
It's definitely, even still after a few years, it's a total pinch me moment every time they ask me to, like this last year when I got asked to be on the CBS desk, it was like, I was as nervous, if not more nervous to do that than I was to compete, because I don't have any background in broadcasting or journalism or anything like that. So it's been challenging to learn how to do it, to learn how to do the research, because I don't follow everything CrossFit all the time. I'm very peripheral. Right now, just with 2 kids, I'm following them around most of the time. So just learning how to do the research, how to speak, how to handle myself at the desk has been a real challenge. But again, I'm somebody, I really like challenge. I like having to learn something new. I like being uncomfortable, to be totally honest. And so it's been really fun to have that challenge in my life. And then on top of it, obviously, it's a huge honor because I know how important, how much, the community loves to watch the shows and watch the desk and, to see us do these shows.
And this was 2007 is when I started CrossFit. So I was working at this station, WJXT, and one of our producers / photographers in the sports department was married to a woman who is a personal trainer. And she had just started using CrossFit, didn't have a level 1, anything like that, but had started using it to train her clients, elements of it, like Olympic lifting and doing some of the name workouts and, stuff for time and teaching the movements. She's very, very proficient in teaching you how to do the movements. And my friend, this guy, Matt, told me, he goes, you should check out this thing called CrossFit. I was like, oh, I don't know. Okay, cool. What is it? He goes, well, you go to a website and they just post a workout and then you do that workout for the day and then that's it. I went, okay, I'm looking for something different because I was the typical, like I think everybody is before they get into CrossFit, go into the Globo gym and Monday is, chest and Tuesday's back and buys and Wednesday's this. And, that was my routine. And I played hockey and that was like my cardio. I looked at the website and I kind of went, and the workout I saw may have been something like, I don't know, 5 sets of 5 shoulder press. Maybe that's what it was. It didn't jump out at me. I went, that doesn't look too hard. Why would I do that? And I kind of blew it off. And then I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to try something different. So I signed up for some personal training sessions with my friend's wife. And she I'd never learned how to squat, taught me how to squat, taught me how to do a really basic kipping pull-up because I'd never done that. I had to learn a whole bunch of skills. And the first named workout that I ever did, she just had me do 10 rounds for time of Cindy. That was it. And I almost died. And I was like, okay, this is a new level of working out that I just threw myself into it after that because I realized I am not in good shape. There is a lot of untapped potential here. I can get a lot more out of my body. And I just, like most people when they get into it, I just threw myself into it. I was on all these websites. I was watching videos. I was trying to learn as much as I could. And I was addicted to it. And I loved it. And I saw an immediate change in, my appearance. I started eating better. I got out of broadcasting temporarily in 2009, when, the economy had tanked at that point, and I had been at this TV station for, good 8-9 years, and they were paying me more than they wanted to pay that position just by virtue of the fact that I had been there so long. So they, decided not to renew my contract. I got into PR and marketing, a company in Jacksonville that I worked for. That gave me an opportunity to move back to California to be closer to home. Because my dad was dealing with some health stuff at the time, and I wanted to be closer to that. So I was working in Sacramento for another marketing company. And that's how I got into the CrossFit broadcasting. I was still doing CrossFit. I was still doing some freelance stuff every now and then. But then I just kind of fell into the opportunity to do some stuff with CrossFit. It was sort of right place, right time, and it all worked out.
That's very cool, man. I also think, CrossFit is such a community-based, philosophy, such a community-based organization. And at a time where the economy is kind of, moving in a different direction, you've been at a place for, almost 10 years, and you're kind of in limbo land of like, what's next? Mm-hmm. and CrossFit kind of brought you in, and then you were, full of enthusiasm and ready to, kind of take the CrossFit media landscape to the next level. Because at that time, it was still kind of up and coming. We saw, the legends like, the Fronings, the Chris Clevers, the Annie Sakamotos, the Bill Grundlers, who you kind of work with a little bit now, creating a little bit of spark and a little bit of noise within the space. And there wasn't really a ton of media around it yet. And how did you kind of find your way into that space to be, to bring it full circle, in my humble opinion, the John Madden of CrossFit?
So I'll tell you how I got into it first, it's a funny story. I was getting at the time I was working out, this is 2012. So I was working out at a gym in Fair Oaks, California, which is right where I grew up, right outside of Sacramento. The owner was a guy by the name of Jake Neubauer. And he said, "Hey man, do you want to coach?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, there's an L1 going on up in Reno. I'll pay for half if you want, and then you can pay for the other half, and then you can coach and just work out here for free." I said, "That sounds like a great deal. I'll do that." Went to the L1 in Reno, and this is February of 2012. Pat Sherwood, who at the time was one of the people who was on the Update Show with Rory Mckernan and Miranda Oldroyd, was one of the instructors. And during one of the breaks, I decided that I should go up and talk to Pat. Introduced myself, said hi, told him kind of what my background was, wanted to know if there was any way to get involved and how I should do that. And he said, "Yeah, here, send me your info and I'll forward it along." And I thought at the time he was, I don't want to say blowing me off, but he was like, yeah, just send me whatever, I'll take care of it. And I have to, go back to the 2011 games. I was there as a fan. And after I saw all the stuff that ESPN was doing there, I was like, I got to find a way to get involved in this. So I had shot off a random email to media@crossfit.com, just explaining who I was. Never heard back. So that 2012 now with Pat was my second attempt to try to get my foot into the door. And to Pat's credit, he did forward my stuff on. Like, I emailed him. He said, thanks. I sent it. I'll pass it along. And I just kind of waited. Didn't hear anything until... I think it was April of 2012. It was right before regionals were going to start. CrossFit was going to be on ESPN that year. Recorded, I think. They were going to do some recorded stuff, or at least, no, they were going to be on ESPN 3, which was at the time was like the online ESPN thing that you could watch, you could stream live. So as a warm-up, what they were going to do to get ready for this is they were going to go to the Central East Regional, because that had Froning and all those heavy hitters that were coming out of there. And they were going to do that as a test run. And they were looking for just anybody that they could try out for the broadcast. So I was sitting in my office at my my 9-to-5 job, and my cell phone rang, and it was a number from Las Vegas. Had no idea who it was. Picked it up, and it was Rory Mckernan. So I immediately made like a beeline out the door. I'm like, I got to take this call. Head out the door, and Rory introduced himself and said, "Hey man, you've been on our radar for a while. I got your email here that you sent from to media at CrossFit.com." So that was back in August. And Pat Sherwood told me about you. He goes, "We're trying to put together a group of people to go and broadcast the Central East Regional live, and we'd like would you be interested in doing it?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll be interested in doing it." He goes, "Okay, we want you to would you be able to do play-by-play for the women's competition?" I'm like, "Absolutely, don't care. Play-by-play for the women's competition sounds great." So did that, and that was kind of the start of it. They said, "Okay, we want you to do the games," and then I did some like part-time stuff for them. Helping out with the regional recap videos. I did some producing for the Update Show, and it was sort of the same situation. I came in there knowing that these guys have no clue what they're doing right now, but I'm not going to say anything because I'm just going to shut up and just do my job until they ask me what I think. And that's how I got involved with it. And
that's so cool. Yeah, Pat Sherwood's such a staple within the space too.
Yeah, he's awesome.
A guy that just brings up such valid points, very articulate. Rory Mckernan, a guy that's a master of his craft and doing some really cool things with CrossFit Mayhem now. Yeah,
that's been good for him to get involved in.
Miranda, I had her husband and business partner, Julian Alcaraz, on the show earlier this year to talk about street parking a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to hear all these names kind of in the same conversation.
It's funny how many people, like I was thinking about it the other day because Chase Ingram was on a podcast talking about that whole 2012 Central East experience. And that's, if you could put a pin in the time where the modern sort of CrossFit media landscape started, it would be right there, because there were so many people that they brought in. I mean, they had all kinds of play-by-play people they were just trying out. It's like, you try this, and they actually had a production crew that had experience with other sports that brought a level of professionalism that I think was lacking. And these guys still work in the space. Mike Roth, who's one of the directors, he's always directing live stuff. Sorry, I just got a message I had to read. And then Eric Barnhart as one of the producers, and all the camera guys that are still part of it. That's really the first time it all came together. It's sort of interesting looking back on that, but that's where it was born, I think.
When you talked about kind of seeing the processes and procedures that they had in place, you kind of being the new guy and not really wanting to create too much chaos right away, what was their system like? And ultimately, how did you kind of create a little bit of positive change for the organization and the structure of production?
So I think Tony Budding said that what was it? He said it was something about how, for not knowing what we were doing, we succeeded based on just, effort. And that was it. Like, it was very clear. Like, they had no idea about how to sort of put a show together. They had no clue about what different roles were supposed to be. They didn't know, basic things like just show structure and things like that. Where you use video, where you use, what graphics to support things. It was just, they just succeeded by sheer will alone. But they did know the sport. And that was what was super important for Tony at the time, Tony Budding, who the guy is kind of the father of the media department, who moved on, I think, in 2014. But he wanted people who knew CrossFit because they had to be able to talk to the community. So I looked at that and go, okay, I'm just going to come in. I'm just going to do my thing. And when someone asks me, I will give them an opinion. But other than that, I'm going to do it their way until they don't want to. And I got an opportunity to kind of help produce the update show. And I think that was the first time where I brought in, like, okay, this is how it's done elsewhere. These are some of the things that we need to start doing and thinking about. And it was a slow process because there were people who were very set in their ways and didn't really want to change. And it was like, no, that's not how we do it in CrossFit. And I'm like, well, if you want to make a good show, that's kind of how you have to do it. And slowly but surely, I think that's kind of how I started to affect some change. And then another guy by the name of Charlie Doobie, who is still involved. He's with Hamilton Road Productions, the company that now does a lot of CrossFit's media. Once he came on board, then there was another person who had been involved in, he had experience with ESPN. So he knew some of the best practices. And then we got more people in who just understood like what broadcasting was all about, like Tommy. Like he had watched plenty of stuff. So he knew like what the jobs were all about. And so we finally started to get like a group of people together who understood, okay, this is what sports broadcasting needs to look like, and this is how we apply it to CrossFit.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a really good job just seeing the systems, being involved in other systems, gradually kind of sharing ideas in a very suggestive way versus like, this is the only way. And then seeing how it's developed over time. Like, I love watching you guys. I love listening to you guys without having like a personal relationship with you before today. I feel like I know you. And all of a sudden we started to see some of this functional fitness media coming from all of these very unique and innovative angles. What was that journey kind of like for you and Tommy? And, what was your, observed perception of it all?
But going back to 2018, when the plug got pulled, there were a lot of things going on that we didn't, that we thought that might help rescue the sport. So at the time, back in 2018, when Greg decided to get rid of the media department, IMG, who owns the UFC, they were in negotiations to try to take over the production side and the broadcast side of the CrossFit Games and its season. So they were speaking to me. They were talking to Tommy about bringing us on board with this. And this was around like October 2018 when we were having these conversations. And we thought, okay, let's do something to where we can stay involved in the space so that when this deal does happen, we're still relevant and that IMG is interested in bringing us on and we can just, go do what we can do for them and everything will be fine. So that's kind of why the podcast, that was like the original reason we started the podcast. Plus we just wanted to continue to talk about the sport. we never thought it would get to the point where it is now, which is it's a great problem to have. But it was just a way for us to let's just stay involved and stay relevant so that when this deal does happen, that will be okay. And they, they would call us, the people from IMG would call me, they'd call Tommy, be like, hey, the deal is almost done. Like we just got to dot some I's and cross some T's, and lawyers got to figure a couple things out, but this is going to happen. And here's what we're interested in doing. And I was having these conversations, into March of 2019. And then finally the deal fell through, and then bam, nothing. So it was like, all right, we're on our own. Let's figure this out. So we kept doing the podcast. We still had opportunities to do some sanction events, still had the opportunity to do the games. Tommy was doing his stuff for Morning Chalk Up. And I think when Greg and company looked at what they wanted to do with media in 2018, they didn't take into account the maturity of the media space. I think they thought that the infrastructure and the media that they were going to rely on to sort of get their message out was more mature than it was, and it wasn't. Now it probably is, and everything that you just summarized, it's like our podcast has grown. Morning Chalk Up is now a place where people go on a daily basis to get information. People love watching the Buttery Bros, so that content is still out there, but it's had to grow a little bit. And now there is a much more robust and healthy media landscape out there to tell the stories that now CrossFit is trying to tell again, and Tommy and I are lucky enough to be involved with that. It's a healthier space, but it had to go through some real serious growing pains. And out of the ashes of what happened in 2018, I think we've gotten some pretty cool stuff. It just took a while, and I wish that would have been there when this did happen in 2018, because maybe the sport wouldn't have dipped as much as it did in those next 2 years.
I think that's a cool summary of it. As you were going through all of that, what's kind of going through the mind of Sean Woodland? You've got a family, you've got responsibilities, you've got bills to pay. You're managing the uncertainty, the fear, everything associated with the pandemic as well, trying to find ways to sneak in your fitness to take care of your physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual health as well. How are you managing all of this chaos while simultaneously trying to stay perky and up with your energy in front of the camera, where there's all this expectation of who you're supposed to be?
Yeah, it was tough. I'm lucky that I'm surrounded by good people. When everything happened in 2018, I was, to your point, I got bills to pay, I got a family to support. I was like, okay, I got to go find a job. And my wife said to me, she goes, don't go do something that you're going to hate. I don't want to see you do that. She goes, give this podcast thing a chance. Give your freelance stuff a chance. Try to build that up. We're going to be okay. She's very lucky to have a good job here in San Jose. She goes, we're going to be all right. We can make this work. And so it was her. And then, Tommy really being the guy who was like, hey man, let's do this podcast. I think this thing can work, to drive that. I really credit both of them for kind of helping me through that. But going through that whole time, it's uncertain, because we thought maybe we'll get a sponsor. Maybe we'll get one sponsor. That'd be kind of cool. And now we have some really good sponsors that support us really well on the show, and that helps us pay our bills. We have opportunities to do stuff with Hamilton Road Productions. We have stuff, opportunities to do stuff for other events, like the Legends Championship. Tommy will be doing Wadapalooza. It's great. Tommy does the stuff with Morning Chalk Up, but there was definitely a time of uncertainty there where it's I don't know if this is going to work. Am I going to have to go do something else? Am I going to have to find a way to get involved in some other broadcasting avenues? And I was looking, and it was really hard during the pandemic because no one was doing anything. There was an uncertainty there that I had to deal with, but having good people around me, being able to work with Tommy on a regular basis, and then having my wife being able to, supporting me, meant a lot and helped me get through that. And it eventually worked out. And we were all very fortunate that things worked out the way they did in 2020. And I think that slowly but surely we are moving in the right direction as far as the sport is concerned.
I appreciate you sharing that vulnerability. I think it was a tough time for everybody. And then, all of a sudden we saw Greg Glassman sold, and we see the growth of Eric Rosa and him coming in from the tech space, and all of this new perked eyebrows, everybody excited with this new energy and enthusiasm. What are your early season predictions? Top 3 on the women's side, top 3
really
on the men's side.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Mr. Sean Woodland on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Tommy Marquez breathing over his shoulder. Top 3 men, top 3 women. What you got, man?
Okay, I think so. I'll start with the women because that's going to be a little harder. I think Tia is going to win. If she enters, she's going to win. She's by far the best. I don't see anybody beating her. Now, behind her, that's where it gets interesting. Let's see. I'll take top 3. Let's see, top 3 for 2022. I'll take Tia Toomey. I want to say Laura Horvath will be in there someplace. I've been super impressed with her with what she's been able to do. Yes, she has a weakness, but it is very narrow. It is a very specific weakness. And she had a hell of a performance at this last game. Like, take away what Tia did, and then the fact that Annie had such an incredible comeback. That was an amazing story that I don't think we talk enough about. So I'll put Horvath in there again. I think she might be the heir apparent. Then I am really intrigued by Gabriella Magawa and the growth that she has shown. I think Haley Adams has a chance as well to possibly wind up in top 3. I'd definitely be keeping an eye on the likes of Mal O'Brien and Emma Carey, Sarah Sigma's daughter with her comeback. But I'll go out on a limb for my third, and I'll say Magawa on the women's side. So those are my 3. I'll take.
No Katrin in that conversation.
I don't.
For you?
So as far as top 3, I don't know. I mean, top 7, sure. Top 6, yes. I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. She might be an outlier, depending on who knows what her training regimen is going to look like and how she gets situated with everything. She always seems to be in the mix. So would it shock me? No. But I'll stick with those 3 for now. Then on the men's side, I think Medeiros has it. He's got to be the favorite. I think Vellner will be in the top 3, and I'm going to throw Ricky Garrard out there because I think that he is a talented athlete who has the right guy in his corner in Justin Kotler, seems to be doing things the right way, looked impressive in a couple of events in Dubai as he gets back to competitive shape. And I'm really, really interested to see what he's going to do. I think he could wind up in the top 3. And then I think outside of that, maybe you look at, Fikowski. You have to consider Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson because he's always up there as well. Been super impressed with him throughout his career. And then, you know what? I'll throw this guy out there too, because I think that he's poised to make a big move, and that's Guy Majeros. I think that he will have I think he's going to have his best season. He made the right choice too by getting involved with Mayhem. Like, there's no one goes to Mayhem and gets worse. That just doesn't happen. Yeah. He's that kid is incredible, and I think he has a ton of potential. He just needs to really kind of get better at the endurance side of things. But he is around the right crew. So I'll go with Medeiros, Vellner, and Garrard as my top 3.
So awesome, man. We could do an entire episode on that, where I just kind of pick your brain and play devil's advocate.
Way too early predictions on that one. Don't hold me to that.
I also think it's cool how you mentioned going to Mayhem. We talk about, the Invictus crew. We talk about some of the other different training camps around the country. Mm-hmm. And what seems to be the magic elixir is training environment. Just like you mentioned with regards to your development and the people that you've been very fortunate to be around, you're a product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that's a great takeaway for people as they kind of transition, concluding the end of 2021, heading into 2022. Self-reflect on, some of the people and the environment that you're spending time in, and that can enable you to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Yeah. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our CrossFit community, my man?
No, I just thank you so much for having me. I hope everybody has a safe and happy new year. And along those lines of people you're around, there's a guy by the name of Scott Galloway who's a professor at NYU, and I love him. I listen to him all the time, and he talks about being successful in your 20s and in your early life. It's like your goal and your job at that age is to just always look to be improving your peer group and look to be getting yourself around people that are better than you and that are going to make you better. And if you do that, I think you're going to be just fine. I think, like you said, environment has a lot to do with it. Try to get around people that are going to teach you something, whether it's, and if you have to knock on doors or make phone calls or send emails to do it, keep reaching out to people. because eventually someone's going to give you an opportunity. When you get an opportunity, take it. Regardless of what it is, take it. And even if it's something you don't want to do, you're going to impress people by doing jobs you don't want to do well, that rather than doing jobs that you do want to do well. And that's, I think, kind of the key to getting onto people's radar.
I love that, man. Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Where can people find you?
Find me on Instagram, swoodland53. I'm on Facebook, also on Twitter. Don't do a lot on Twitter. That's more like I just sort of listen on Twitter. And then, at Talking Elite Fitness is our Instagram page. And then we have talkingelitefitness.com. We also have a Patreon page, Talking Elite Fitness, or patreon.com/Talking Elite Fitness. So, and then you can listen to the podcast as well. I think we got some cool stuff cooking for 2022.
Are you over 35 and in need of a solid training program? Are you looking to improve your athleticism and keep up with the younger athletes in your CrossFit gym? Then look no further than our Invictus Masters program. This program places year-round emphasis on mobility and stability exercises with movements that we have seen directly benefit our Masters athletes. Our program is led by Nicole DeHart and offers a training program designed specifically for Masters athletes who are looking to compete at a higher level in the sport of CrossFit. Some of our top Masters athletes in the world train with us, including CrossFit Games champion Kevin Kester, Matt Beals, and Pat Sprague. You can learn more about their stories and the Invictus Masters program by checking out their episodes right here on the Invictus Mindset Podcast. If you'd like more information about the current training cycle or to join the Invictus Masters program, please email Nicole at invictusathlete.com. That's NICHOLE at invictusathlete.com.